Public pressures forced an abrupt U-turn from the government over how many people can attend a tangi at alert level 2. From tomorrow, funeral directors can apply to the Health Ministry to operate under the new rules. Initially, funeral guests were restricted to just 10 because the government was concerned about a potential second wave of infections and because people couldn't be relied on to socially distance in such an emotional situation. But after a rethink, funeral directors will be able to get special dispensation for up to 50 people to attend a tangi as long as the Ministry of Health is satisfied they meet safety requirements. And this is all unravelled against the backdrop of a fierce debate on urgent legislation needed to enforce these new level 2 rules, with the National Party casting opposing votes all the way through. Health Minister David Clark joins us in a moment, but first here's our political reporter Jo Moyer.
It was embattled Health Minister David Clark who was left to explain the U-turn.
From tomorrow, funeral directors can submit a form that registers for an exemption to allow up to 50 people to attend a funeral.
Tangihanga protocol on marae will be similar to funerals. Director General of Health, Ashley Bloomfield, says he sees no reason why tangi could not be held over a number of days. He says the new rules are ready to go.
We're going to make sure the guidance and the forms are available today so that in fact they can register, and as soon as we go into alert level 2 tomorrow, they could go up to that limit of 50 as long as they've got it registered with us.
However, this is not enough for National Party leader Simon Bridges, who also wants the limit raised for religious events.
This is grossly unfair treatment of people of faith in New Zealand. Somehow church is seen as less safe than a late night bar or a strip club where 100 can congregate.
MPs came back this morning to progress the legislation, giving new powers to police to enforce level 2 rules. People can gather in groups no larger than 10, and police can enter premises without a warrant to enforce the orders. The new law gives the Health Minister the power to issue orders, which can be backed up with fines or imprisonment. Education Minister Chris Hipkins used his speech to stress COVID had no respect for anything, including tangi.
If someone goes to a funeral who has COVID-19 and there are other people at that funeral who are in high-risk categories and that virus is spread, there could be more deaths from that funeral.
At the same time, MPs were passionately debating this very issue in the House, the Prime Minister, Director General of Health and Māori ministers were meeting with funeral directors, church and iwi leaders to make changes. At midday, RNZ broke the news the government had had a change of heart. An hour later, and the Prime Minister herself confirmed it.
Funerals and weddings have been part of the spread of COVID-19 in many countries, but also recognise that funerals and tangi are exceptional. They're life events that cannot be postponed.
During today's debate, the opposition repeatedly voiced objections that went a lot broader than church services and funerals. National MP Jerry Brownlee says the legislation infringes on New Zealanders' civil liberties without justification.
What's the fear factor that says that we now can't trust New Zealanders to do the right things moving forward? This goes too far. Puts far too much power in the hands of one person, the Prime Minister.
The government has acknowledged the speed at which the legislation has been passed, with no chance for any kind of public consultation. But it's justified the haste by the need to have these new powers in place when New Zealand moves into level 2 at midnight tonight, in the name of health safeguards having to trump some individual rights. The state of emergency that's been in place since the 25th of March has now been lifted. From Parliament for Checkpoint, Jo Moyer.